Good afternoon, friends. This is Isaiah, and you are here. Hope everyone's doing well this afternoon. Another beautiful day. Then again, every day you're alive is a beautiful day. Subject I want to discuss today is the subject of the reptilian mind. What do I mean when I say the reptilian mind? I briefly mentioned it before, but I've mentioned it several times in past videos where I've been discussing the subconscious mind. So the reptilian mind can be compared to that of the subconscious mind because they are both almost one and the same. The reptilian mind, from just a scientific level, is the part of your brain that controls your automatic bodily functions. It works with the subconscious mind as far as your reactions to previous experiences, things that you know and don't know, that sorts of things. Subconscious puts things into action. The reptilian mind it keeps you alive, keeps your body pumping, your heart going and your blood circulating, that sort of thing. But what else is the reptilian mind as we know it? Well, the reptilian mind is basically, it's your brain. It's your brain-body connection. You see, your body that you're living in, your flesh, blood, bone, this vehicle that we're living inside of, it is a living organism all on its own. It has its own behaviors, it has its own habits, its own desires, its own thoughts. And that is oftentimes referred to as the reptilian mind. Well, why is this important? Because most of us live day to day believing that we are this animated structure, that we are this organic suit, this vehicle. And I've talked about this before, but I'm going to go into more depth on the body itself. The body is its own entity. It has its own wants and desires. It wants to be comfortable. It wants to be safe. It wants you to be in a predictable environment. So the body, the brain, will urge you to make decisions to ensure that that happens. Anytime you do something that's outside of the norm or deemed as a new experience, you may have a sensation of nervousness, or you might sweat. There's all sorts of physiological reactions that you'll have to a new situation or circumstance because the brain and the body don't know how to accept what it is you're about to do. They don't have any previous experience to compare it to, so the body becomes uncertain, and sometimes we'll listen to that nervousness, that fear, and we won't indulge or engage in the situation that we'd planned on, the new experience. Sometimes people will go their entire lives not ever trying anything new or doing anything new because of this crippling fear that's initiated by the reptilian mind. You see, we are much, much more than this body. There's a side of you that yearns to explore, that knows there's more to this life than what you've been taught and what you've been told. You see, all we're ever taught is how to listen to our body and do what it says. We're taught to identify with this vessel. It has a name and it has a place that it grew up. It has its own story and it clings to that story, good or bad. Well, anytime you resist against it, it's the part of your body, it's the part of your brain that tells you things. It's the part of yourself that says you can do something or you can't do something. It is oftentimes, unfortunately, the part of yourself that will beat you down so that you don't step outside of the norm. It will put false ideas in your head. It'll make up scenarios about a person or a situation so that it can stay safe and keep you in a familiar environment. When you start to become aware of the body and the brain, when you start to think of it as being a separate entity all on its own that has its own physiological processes that it carries out, has its own behaviors and habits, you can start to recognize the difference between your true self, which is the timeless essence, the unspeakable part of your being. And I know that's kind of vague, but I got a feeling you guys understand what I'm saying. It's the part of you that you can't quite place your finger on. It's the part of you that yearns to do the right thing, to be in new situations and to try new things and to typically make the right decision. It's the part of you that will forsake yourself. It's the part of you that will put you in a situation regardless of how safe you might be, as long as someone else is protected and well and safe. This can be a very easy concept to understand, or this can be a very difficult and technical concept to understand. Basically, it's your body, the reptilian mind, is very reactionary. It's the part of you that the second someone does something you don't agree with or you don't like, bam, you already have it made up in your mind. You're already acting before you've even thought about it. It's just so automatic. It's the reason why we go through our life repeating certain behaviors. And we can't understand why we can't get past repeating those behaviors. We don't know why we can't let go of the habits. Well, it's because it's the human brain, it's our mind, our reptilian mind, telling us that if we stop doing something that we've always done, or if we attempt to better ourselves, that we're just going to fail, so that it can stay in a safe environment, stay in the situation that it's in, that it's used to. I want to say that again. The reptilian mind and body wants to stay in the situation that it's used to. Unless it can find some way of gaining gratification out of a new endeavor that you're going to embark upon, then it usually will not help you to achieve your goals. And what do I mean by that? The ego is a part of this process. The ego is the part of yourself that says, well, I can do that, that'll make me look good, or I'll feel better, or people will think very highly of me. People will believe that I'm important if I do that thing, whatever that may be, or people will want to just be near me and just think that I'm wonderful, or I will make lots of money for doing that thing. It's the part of you that is typically not very humble. And this works hand in hand with the reptilian mind, because a lot of that thinking is automatic. We're raised to do things to take care of ourselves, and while we need to take care of ourselves and having confidence and doing things because you want to do them, there's nothing wrong with that. It's when when we do it in excess, when we do it to a point where it's damaging to ourselves and to the people around us in this world. That's when the ego becomes a problem. It becomes unhealthy at that point. It's not a thing that's serving anyone, not even yourself. And it's a thought pattern and a process that needs to be eradicated immediately. The second you start doing things because they have meaning or they have purpose behind them, it's not always going to line up with what your ego or your reptilian mind want you to do in this life. If it's not self-serving, the ego will just creep up and be like, what are you doing? You want to look like a fool. Working hand in hand with the reptilian mind, you're going to look dumb. Don't do that. That could hurt you. Are you crazy? Or if you give that money to that person, you won't have the money. then you'll be in the situation they're in. Or, I mean, the list goes on and on. We're familiar with this mode of thinking, and in part it derives from the reptilian mind. Reptilian mind is focused only on one thing: self-preservation. It keeps us safe. We needed this wiring in our brain when there were things lurking off in the woods that could get us or could hurt us. When we needed to hunt for our food and gather, and we were more of a survivalist type species, where we were just, in our more incipient primitive stages. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to be worried about being attacked by a tiger, or being stealthy enough to hunt or forage for our food. But this process still exists in the brain, and where we don't need to use it for those sorts of things, for survival means, it creeps up in our life to do other things. It makes us believe that in order to survive, we need to be comfortable and we need to just be looking out for ourselves. And while that is true, there is a certain level of comfortability I believe that everyone has the right to experience in their life. There's nothing wrong with it. But when it consumes you to a point where you're not doing anything to better yourself, and it's keeping you from living your best quality of life, or it's causing you to partake in dangerous habits because it feels good to your sense perception, then the reptilian mind, it becomes a very damaging creature that we shouldn't listen to. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences on the reptilian mind? How has your reptile brain affected you in your life? And I feel like I need to reiterate this. We are two entities in one. Human body, brain. This machine has its own wants and desires, reacts to chemical stimuli. What do I mean when I say it reacts to chemical stimuli? Let me check. I mean chemicals in foods, alcohol, drugs, those sorts of things. Anything that puts the brain in a euphoric state or forces it to produce feel-good hormones, and I've mentioned this before, the reptilian mind is going to want more of that. That's how we develop habits and drug addictions. That's what creates them in the first place, is this dependency on chemicals to release feel-good hormones inside of our brain, and the brain doesn't have to do it itself. And your brain eventually stops producing them naturally on its own until you partake in whatever chemical substance it is that's making your brain feel good. Sometimes we can do that for so long that our brains, it's impossible for our brains to produce positive feel-good hormones like dopamine and serotonin, and we suffer brain damage and have to be on medications that help us in producing those chemicals inside of the brain. You can 100% do anything that you want, regardless of what your mind tells you. Just because you think something's a bad idea doesn't mean that it is. Sometimes it is. You got to be careful. I mean, aside from the obvious, if what you're about to do could potentially hurt you or someone else, yeah, you may want to think twice about it. But if it's not going to harm you or someone else, maybe you should check it out and see what it's all about. Life's too short to not take chances. And sometimes taking the big ones, the big chances in life, open doors for us that we may not have otherwise been able to have come into our lives. An opportunity might have never came because If we didn't take a chance or step outside of our comfort zone, then we may have never gotten the break that we needed to be where we wanted to be, or to go where we wanted to go. The reptilian mind is what makes it hard to get up in the morning when the alarm clock goes off, or just stay nice, warm, and comfortable in the bed and get the last little bit of rest. The reptilian mind is the one that tells you people are going to heckle you or make fun of you when you wear something new or you do something different than what you normally do. The reptilian mind is what tells you that things are just going to be hard or are going to be tough and make you question your goals. The reptilian mind tells you if you're going to change eating habits and start maybe exercising and taking care of yourself. It tells you that the food you're going to have to eat is going to be disgusting, and exercise is going to be painful and strenuous. You don't want to do that. The reptilian mind tells you that, that person over there, see them, they're going to get you. You better get them first. Makes us sometimes competitive in situations where we don't need to be competitive. The reptilian mind is the part of yourself that tells you, see that person over there laughing? They're laughing at you. You can't listen to this stuff, folks. And some of you may not deal with this. Everyone's perspective, everyone's reptilian mind and body operates differently. No two people see anything identical. We can see things similarly to one another, but we're not going to perceive information and situations exactly the same, more often than not. This has been my experience with the reptilian mind and what I've come to know about it. Basically, everything I've needed to do in my life where I've felt held back by something, 9 times out of 10, that something has been the obstacle of just this flesh that's inside of my skull, that brain. If we can learn to put down the reptilian mind and embrace the side of ourselves that is there, awaiting in the background, the side of us that's observing our thoughts, not creating them, the side of us that gives us that fire in our chest that causes us to move and to take chances. If we can listen to the higher aspects of our being, our lives as a whole will be a lot more rewarding. And if we start doing that, we will inadvertently be taking care of our fellow man and not only ourselves, because it'll be a byproduct of our successes. Because the successes and the things that we will be looking towards achieving will be derived from a place of purity and goodness. Oftentimes, selfish motivations lead to suffering of your fellow man, because oftentimes that reptile mind, that brain, will force you into making decisions that you otherwise wouldn't normally make in order to get ahead. It'll say, if you don't get them, they're going to get you. So you better watch out. It'll do things like that. And that's just causing you to hurt other people. When you hurt other people, that is a series of actions that creates a negative energy. Well, when you do that, there's going to be a reaction, and oftentimes it is a negative reaction or a negative experience or situation or perception or feeling that comes into the realm of our perspective. Some people call that karma, but it's really just cause and effect if you want to break it down. If you make choices that are not always easy, but are going to serve you, that's going to cause you to just naturally be willing and able to serve someone else. If you're willing to serve yourself, you'll be more willing to serve others. It'll put you in a mind state of giving and servitude and doing what's right. And the more you do that, the more opportunities that will arise in your life for you to do something good for yourself and for someone else. And in doing those things and in taking those actions, you're creating a positive energetic state around you. You're creating positive vibrations on the planet. And that positive energy, cause and effect, is going to go full circle and come right back into your life. Don't let that be a motivating factor to do good. Just let it be what it is. And just know that if you serve yourself, you serve others, and you do what's right, and you stay strong, and you stay focused up here and in here, you will prevail. You will come out in the end. I spoke in my previous video of an evolution that we're going through as humans in the collective consciousness video. This is part of that evolution, the dying of the reptilian brain, and us using the higher aspects of ourselves, soul, higher self. Call it whatever you will. Call it whatever best suits you on your path. We all have it, we all know it's there, and we all call it different things. But this evolution that's taking place right now, this conscious global awakening, is going to cause the reptilian mind and brain to diminish and to get weaker over time. And we can accelerate this process, and we can allow this process to take place just by starting right this minute and making the right decisions. You know what the right decisions are. Everyone does. I can't tell you what the right decisions are. We all know. We're all well aware of, I should do this, I shouldn't do that. This would help me or someone else. This would just be selfish. We all know what those actions are. I hope this video has served you well. I always feel like I'm ranting until I go back and I watch my videos and I find good information in there. But I hope that it has served you. And if you know of anyone else that it could help out or give some insight to, please don't hesitate to share it. Also, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to my channel. And you can also follow along on Instagram at youarehere334. Well, my friends, I hope that till next time you have much peace in your mind, much love in your heart, much balance in your soul. Take care, my friends.